Yes, good morning. You're waking up to Friday's Ireland AM. There's lots on the way over the next 3 hours, so stay with us.
Coming up on today's show, half of you all right there?
I was doing a Stan Laurel.
Wake yourself up.
I'm just being so cool in the bar here. Anyway, it'll be okay. More tea and coffee when we wake up. Anyway,
I need tea.
Half of households say they actually went cold to cut bills during the winter energy crisis. We'll have that story and everything else making today's papers.
The eviction ban for renters looks set to end today. So what will this mean for tenants and landlords? We'll be discussing.
Can Ireland bounce back from last week's defeat to Wales in the Women's Six Nations? It wasn't good. No. We'll be chatting sport later this hour.
Stylist and friend of legendary singer Amy Winehouse tells us about sharing a flat with the star and dealing with Amy's meteoric rise to fame.
And plenty of styling tips today. And she's one of Ireland's top designers and artists. Helen Steele tells us how she's helping a good cause by donating her art to an ingenious fundraising auction.
Now, Deric, our weather fortune teller, is out and about this morning. Welcome back from your holidays, Deric. But whereabouts are you?
Yeah, well, Martin, they call me Mystic Meg when the sun is shining and Skeptic Peg when it's raining.
Skeptic Peg.
Anyway, welcome up here to Belfast in County Antrim, guys. It's
yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a pretty wet one out there today. The best of dryness, really, across Munster later on this Friday. We're into the last day of March. Tommy Bjorn, Showmill first. In fact, we're here in the heart of the Titanic Quarter, and we're off to visit the HMS Caroline. It's one of the only surviving warships from World War I in the Battle of Jutland. So we're going to be taking you on a trip of that, a little bit of a tour around the floating museum here in the heart of the Titanic Quarter later on this morning. I believe there's no sailors on board, Elaine, Katja, but we'll do our best, girls, to see who we can find.
So I guess Deric will have to be our eye candy.
To be fair, if it was from the Battle of Jutland, I think they might be a bit too old even for me.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, I'd say. But now let's go over to Anne O'Donnell for your first news bulletin of today.
Thanks, Katja. Good morning. Well, a New York grand jury has voted to indict the former US President Donald Trump for his alleged role in a hush money scheme involving adult film star Stormy Daniels. Donald Trump is expected to appear in court next Tuesday, and he will be the first former US president to be indicted on criminal charges. While his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, believes prosecutors have a strong case.
You know, I always call this the Capone theory, the Al Capone theory. They couldn't get him on murder, extortion, racketeering, bootlegging, etc. They got him on tax evasion. If that crime, Don, was enough for me to be charged, fined, convicted, and sent to prison, why am I any different than Donald Trump?
The ban on evictions will come to an end today in Ireland. The controversial move by the government has resulted in widespread anger and criticism from the opposition, while homeless charities say thousands of families will be forced into homelessness as a direct result of the policy. Official figures now show the number of people in emergency accommodation is 11,754. That's a record high. Pope Francis is working from hospital today and his condition is said to be improving. That's according to the Vatican. Well, he was admitted on Wednesday with a respiratory infection.
Pope Francis remains in Rome's Gemelli Hospital after being admitted on Wednesday afternoon. The 86-year-old pontiff's condition is improving, according to the Vatican, after he experienced difficulty breathing. And although he doesn't have COVID, he will remain in hospital for several days of treatment. The Pope has in recent months kept up a robust travel schedule, which he has said he doesn't want to sacrifice.
He's gone to Canada, making a week-long visit there that was really quite demanding physically. He's gone on to Kazakhstan, Bahrain, and made a very aggressive and trying visit to Congo and South Sudan just last month at the beginning of February. So he's kept up his travel schedule, and he's got another trip scheduled at the end of April to Hungary.
There is a question mark over his ability to perform his Easter duties next week, the busiest and most important time in the Catholic calendar. However, there is a precedent for the cancellation of events during Holy Week. Pope John Paul II was unable to celebrate liturgies in 2005. Trish Laverty, Virgin Media News.
A jury in the US has found actress Gwyneth Paltrow not liable for a ski collision back in 2016. A retired optometrist Terry Sanderson sued Paltrow over injuries he said he suffered when the two collided. Well, the civil trial jury deliberated for a little over 2 hours on Thursday before returning their verdict.
We're pleased with this outcome and appreciate the judge and jury's thoughtful handling of this case. Gwyneth has a history of advocating for what she believes in. This situation was no different, and she will continue to stand for what she believes is right.
A man aged in his early 30s has died following a row in Dublin city centre last week. The public order incident happened in the Coppinger Row, South William Street areas in the early hours of last Friday morning. An altercation broke out between a number of men, and one of those later died at home as a result of his injuries. And it's time now to cross over to Ger for a look at the sport.
Thanks, Anne, and good morning. Ireland have their captains run in Cork this morning ahead of tomorrow's Six Nations game against France. Teenager Dana O'Brien will make her first Six Nations start in the game at Musgrave Park.
The Ireland rugby squad preparing for match 2 in this season's Six Nations. The big team news is that coach Greg McWilliams has handed 19-year-old Carlow native Dana O'Brien her first Six Nations start at out half.
Look, Dana is somebody who's got a very strong kicking game, very skillful. You just want her to be herself. You want her to understand, what she's really good at, and you just want to let her play. She's a really, really talented player. She's relatively inexperienced, but I believe that she is the right person to start at 10 for this week, as do the players, as do the rest of the staff.
In all, there are 5 changes to the team that played against Wales. In the pack, there are starts for Christy Haley, Grace Moore and Derval Nicavard, while Vicky Irwin and O'Brien come into the backs as Ireland look to bounce back from that loss to Wales.
There's no doubt last Saturday didn't go well, like in any sport. The key is how group can come together and plan for the next challenge, and this is our next challenge. We're hearing that there's going to be close on 6,000 people in Musgrave Park. That's 6,000 people who are going there to support an Irish side who know that last week didn't go well, and it's a chance for us to show our growth as a group and to show that we're on the right path. I think if we do that, I think it's going to be a good day.
Ireland fans too will be hoping it'll be a good day. Bernard O'Toole, Virgin Media Sport.
And you can see Ireland's clash against France live on Virgin Media 2 tomorrow. Coverage gets underway at 2:30. Republic of Ireland captain Katie McCabe has had a scan on a foot injury she suffered playing for Arsenal on Wednesday. McCabe ended the night on crutches and in a protective boot. It's hoped that the injury isn't as bad as first feared as Ireland prepare for this summer's World Cup.
Cautious. I wouldn't speculate because we haven't seen the scan yet. She had a smile on her face, an indication that it may not be that bad. And it's a physical game. You get kicked and you kick other people. I've no doubt that she will bounce back. Medical technology now, it's up there. So I think that Katie will bounce back. I'm a little bit worried, but not too worried.
She will do everything in her power, whatever it takes to get out there, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if she's back in time for it, This is what she's dreamt about, this is what she's put the hard work in for, so I've no doubt she's going to put the hard work in recovery and get back out there, she will be there.
Chelsea are through to the Women's Champions League semi-finals. They beat holders Lyon 4-3 on penalties. 4 games in the SSE Airtricity League Premier Division tonight, including second place Derry City's trip to Shelbourne. Champions Shamrock Rovers are at Dundalk. Crystal Palace manager Roy Hodgson says he's purely focused on the present and not thinking about continuing his role next season. The former England manager was brought back to Palace when Patrick Vieira was sacked almost 2 weeks ago.
I'm purely focusing on the now. There was no discussion about that at all. I don't know what Crystal Palace's plans are going forward. Knowing Steve and the owners as well as I do, I'm sure they've got ideas and got plans going forward. They've asked myself and Ray to do a very specific job, work with this group of players and try to make certain that at the end of the season we are still a premiership team, and I like it that way.
Padraig Harrington is 1 shot off the lead after his opening round at the Valero Texas Open. He's 4 under. Justin Lower leads the way there on 5 under with play suspended. Now let's take an opening look at today's weather with Deric.
For car insurance, van insurance or home insurance, call the Quote Devil. Unless, of course, you've got money to burn.
Gurmila Mahagacher, Tommy Bjorn, Sean Mail Ferris live here in Belfast in County Antrim this morning. We're off to pay a visit to the HMS Caroline here in the heart of the Titanic Quarter. A little bit later on, that old battleship from World War I. So that's all to come later on this morning. Of course, open to the public tomorrow for the first time in 2 years. Anyway, let's take an opening look at weather together now with Ronan McIntyre with us on cameras. And it is a dry and settled start here in Belfast at the moment. But, and it's a big but because it's a different story for the rest of the country. Some heavy rain now coming down through West Galway, West Mayo into West Clare, parts of Cork, Kerry, Limerick, and in fact almost the entire county with the exception of the northeast of Kilkenny covered in rain at the moment, Waterford not escaping either. So plenty of rain now to kickstart the last day of the month, but it is holding drier into the Medlands through parts of the northwest in those moderate northwesterly winds. Now, right across today, that system feeding up across the country, so plenty of showers really to take us through the 31st of March. The best of dryness, the best of brightness really will pull through parts of Munster, but again, we're expecting more scattered showers to take us right across the day, but 9 to 13 degrees in terms of those temperatures. And across then into tonight, it's another showery one in store, easing back to an improving picture as we edge our way tonight into your Saturday morning, 1st of April into tomorrow as well, with values back to about 5 to 9 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in a dry and settled Belfast at the moment. We'll be back again live at 7:35.
For first-time drivers, young drivers, returning drivers, if you've had an open claim or have had too many penalty points.
The Quote Devil's always got one hell of a quote.
Now let's check on your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline, new system will only allow licensed enforcement guards to conduct evictions. The paper reports that unregulated agents working for landlords will no longer be able to carry out evictions in the Republic under new laws that become operational tomorrow. The first day evictions can resume following the lifting of the ban.
Landlords snubbing councils offers for properties. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. The paper reports that landlords are asking for more money than local councils are willing to pay for homes where tenants have been served with notices to quit.
The Examiner leads with tax hikes to top up pension funds. The paper details how workers could face tax hikes in the budget as the government considers increasing PRSI to top up funds to pay for future pensions.
Onto the tabloids, and new laws to help the state acquire land for housing is the top story on the Daily Mail. The paper details that new laws approved by the Attorney-General will boost the state's powers to forcibly buy land in an effort to tackle the country's housing crisis.
The Sun leads with Seema, he will kill me. The paper reports that tragic Seema Banu predicted she'd be murdered by her husband, telling a security guard, he will kill me.
The Star goes with Mago, I'm up to all sorts. The paper details how a top-tier target for the Kinahan cartel has told the Criminal Assets Bureau he is an unemployed sweet shop owner and denies being a senior figure in the criminal underworld.
The Herald leads with Black Axe gang woman quizzed over €10 million. The paper reports that a woman who is considered a major figure in the Black Axe crime group has been arrested.
And finally, the Mirror goes with Safe and Hound. The paper reports how a hero pet dog saved a man's life by waking him up as fire lit through his home.
Now we're coming up to the most chocolatey time of the year, and to celebrate, Cadbury's has created a worldwide hide where you hide a Cadbury's Easter egg for someone you love in a place that's special to you guys both.
We've teamed up with Cadbury to give you the chance of winning one of 5 €500 one-for-all vouchers, plus a cracking Cadbury hamper.
Now, can I have an Easter egg that size, please? Anyway, when you spot the Cadbury Easter egg rolling across your screen, that's your cue to text EGG, E-G-G, to 57199 and answer the question given. Good luck with it.
Let's hope it's a big one.
Yeah.
That size?
Like that, yeah.
Thank you.
You'd be very sick eating that much, though.
It lasted the whole year.
Take your time.
No, but you'd eat it all day. Easter morning, you'd be sick. Yeah. Anyway, up next, from energy bills to US presidents, we chat through the top stories making today's paper. See you after the break. very welcome back to the show. Joining me with the top stories making today's papers are Deputy Political Editor with the Irish and Sunday Independent, Hugh O'Connell, and reporter with the Journal.ie, Lauren Boland. Thank you both so much for joining us on the show this morning. Now, we've a lot to get through today, and I suppose in the Independent, one story that is leaping out is the fact that half of households say they actually went cold to afford their electricity and heating bills this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is it's quite bleak, really. It's looking at some polling that was done of people, their experiences this winter in terms of energy costs and their heating, what they were doing to try and keep their energy costs down. 80% of people said that they tried to take some kind of measures to curb their energy use. So that's things that we all hear about, turning off the lights or using the central heating less or wearing more clothes. But actually, despite all of that, I think it was about 3/4 of people still said that they were kind of 50%, 60% of people said they were still shocked when their energy bills came, that they were even at that still much higher than they were expecting them to be. And I think that's really one of the most telling stats there. And it's also an interesting story today I saw on the front of the Irish Examiner, which is about Bord Gosh and how their owner operates British Gas in the UK as well. And over there, they're introducing some lower costs for customers that aren't going to be coming in here. So even it's going to be a little bit of a sting for people too.
Yeah, I see a lot of Irish people, I think, don't realise that Bord Gosh is owned by an Irish company anymore.
Yeah, I think it's owned by Centrica in the UK.
Centrica.
So, I mean, as Lauren said, they've offered, I think, a price reduction for the UK customers, but there's no plans to do it here, which, again, I think is something that a lot of people are going to be pretty annoyed about.
Yeah.
And again, coming at it from the political side, I know the government's very concerned about this in terms of they've been pushing the companies to do more on this with the kind of the carrot and stick approach, but the stick approach very much being, we'll come down hard on you if we can. But I mean, to what extent they can, I'm not sure. I mean,
windfall tax?
Well, they've introduced that, but
has it done any
they
good?
watered it down on the insistence of the oil companies who worried that who warned that it could put them out of business. The company that owns the state's only oil refinery down in Cork. So, there's a bit of the government has to do this balancing act really, that not to annoy these companies too much, that they either shut down or become unviable, but also obviously be seen to be doing something. But what I found interesting in the survey was that between 25 and 33% of people said that if the bills went any higher, they wouldn't be able to pay them or they'd struggle to pay them, which I think shows that a lot of households have reached their limit. And while some people were probably expecting that they would get high bills this winter and maybe had saved a little money to do that, and the electricity credit helped a little bit as well, if they go any higher, it's going to be a problem for a lot of households.
Thank God we're coming into the summer. Please, hopefully.
Yeah. And it's pretty warm out there today.
Isn't it? We're actually roasting here in the studio, we're just saying as well. And look at us all in our long sleeves. Anyway, speaking of warm, someone who's feeling the heat at the moment is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Come on now, fill us in on what's been happening with him. This is just pure soap opera at the moment.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. He's still box office even after. I mean, it's nearly 3 years, nearly 4 years since he's 3 years since he's left the White House, and already there's he's been indicted overnight in the US in relation to payoffs to the porn actress Stormy Daniels in advance of the 2016 US presidential election. This has been a long-running story. It was always felt that this could be the thing of all things that could catch Donald Trump, of all his alleged crimes and misdemeanors, that these hush payments to this porn actress who's alleged to have had a relationship with prior to becoming president is the thing that could catch him. And so we will face the prospect in the coming days of authorities in New York arresting Donald Trump, the prospect of Donald Trump in handcuffs, him being booked, a mugshot being taken. And I saw one of his supporters last night suggest that, actually the mugshot could be the 2024 campaign election poster, because obviously his supporters believe that this is a conspiracy against him.
Yeah.
Totally hyped up charges to try and do him in.
The Democrats are, since he came down the golden escalator in Trump Towers, that everyone's been out to get him. But I love the way the US works sometimes. If they can't get them on the real, like, headline crimes, like Al Capone, they'll get them on the money. And the money, it's not the fact the payment was made, it was just the way in which the payment was made through his lawyer to Stormy Daniels and how it wasn't declared, etc. and so forth. And it's really interesting the way that one little technicality can bring down Donald Trump and probably scupper his chance of really ever getting re-elected.
Well, whether it scuppers his chances of re-election, I suppose, is the bigger question, isn't it?
But I suppose he won't be the Republican Party candidate, realistically speaking, will he?
Well, You would think that logic
Yeah.
would dictate that, but I think we've seen over the last few years just how dedicated of a following he does have. There are obviously other contenders over there, people like Ron DeSantis in Florida, who I suppose are building a following as well. But as Hugh was pointing out, there are many in the States who believe that, this is a conspiracy, that, the Democrats are out to get Trump, and that actually this just, in their minds cements this belief that they already have, that they've had for years, going back to what we saw on Capitol Hill in 2021, where, people were coming out to riot, over the supposed election fraud, and it's the same thread coming through now, believing that, that these are made-up charges intended to, thwart his chances of re-election. But even we know that even if he is, arrested and goes through a process here, it actually doesn't disqualify him in any way to run for president. It doesn't disqualify him to run, and it doesn't disqualify him to become president either. Now, obviously, if that situation did occur, there would be the chance of impeachment proceedings going through again. But we know he's already been impeached twice through Congress, and which then didn't make it through the Senate. So that would very much depend on who controls the House and the Senate at that point.
Yeah, it would be, but I don't think the moderate Republicans would be any way, shape or form supporting it.
That's a point. But look, if there's one thing we know about Donald Trump is he has defied logic ever since he got into politics.
God, he's defied more than logic.
And more than that.
My friend calls him the Orange Menace. She actually left the States because of him, because she couldn't bear it anymore. Now, from one US president that we absolutely can't tolerate, well, I can't absolutely tolerate, to one we kind of like here in Ireland. Joe Biden, he's coming over, and it's sooner rather than later. But there's lots of preparations underway. It's a massive security operation too.
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, I can't think of a visit equivalent to this. I mean, Barack Obama came in 2011, but that was a very, very short visit. I mean, it was only a few hours, really, that he was in Dublin and in Moneygall. And then Donald Trump has been here before, but we don't quite roll out the red carpet for Republicans in this country, or at least not that Republican. But Joe Biden, as you said, he has strong Irish roots, and he's planning to spend several days here, I think between 3 and 4 days in April. He'll arrive into Northern Ireland, but then he'll spend some time in Dublin. He'll go to his ancestral home in Mayo, and also Louth is being talked about as well. So this is a huge operation, I think, which is going to put the state's resources to the, it's going to stretch them to the limit, I think.
I remember Biden strolling past me, actually, on just off Grafton Street. I was sitting out having a drink with a couple of my friends, and there he was with his entourage when he was vice president. I don't think I'll get as close to him this time.
Very different this time.
Very, very different this time, I think, yeah. So it's a lot of the detail is still to be fleshed out. There will be some sort of keynote speech thing, which will probably be the suggestion could be at College Green, it could be at Dublin Castle, maybe another venue being talked about is Ivy Gardens in Dublin. But he could also do that big speech in Mayo, perhaps, potentially, where there might be a bit more space.
Like the Pope.
The Pope.
And College Green, actually, for Clinton, I was there as well. God, I'm showing my age now. Up next, the eviction ban is set to end today. So how will this impact renters across the nation? We'll be discussing after this short break. Thanks a million, lads. Lovely to chat to you. You're very welcome back to the show. Ireland's eviction ban, which was put in place last October, is now set to expire today, leaving thousands of renters in uncertain, uncharted territory.
So how will this impact tenants going forward? We're joined now by housing expert and lecturer Rory Hearn, along with Erin Brogan, FLAC's Telephone Information and Referral Line Development Manager. Thank you so much for joining us.
Now, it's important to note that we reached out to the coalition government partners to join this morning's discussion, but kill surprise, none were available to comment to us today. So we don't have Eamon, we don't have Micheál, we don't have Leo on the couch today. We have you two, so no pressure there. But speaking of pressure today, there's an awful lot of renters today, Rory, who are absolutely bricking it, to use the vernacular, because the safety net has gone up today.
Yeah, it's a really sad day. And I know, and renters are contacting me all the time, like they are terrified, literally terrified. And the anxiety it's causing, the stress, and people will be made homeless again from tomorrow. And it just seemed like I was so angered by the decision, because I think that it was unnecessary. There was no reason why they couldn't have extended another 6 months.
What was their reason for refusing to do so?
Well, their essential argument was, well, we heard just unbelievable comments by Barry Cowan yesterday comparing that, the children had got too much sweets, and I just went, how disconnected?
Free sweets to children
How disconnected can people be from the reality of what it's like to have to lose your home? And And I think that there is that, why they went ahead with it was essentially that they're arguing that landlords are leaving and therefore the eviction ban, keeping it longer, is making more landlords go, oh, we might sell up as well because tenants are getting too many rights. And this is kind of the narrative. This is the discussion. And they're saying that if they left the eviction ban, it would deter more investors from coming in because we need this rental supply. And rather than saying, actually, the system is broken. We've too much reliance on private landlords.
See, that's the problem here, I think, because we're depending on the private sector to provide basically public housing, and that's why we're in the mess we're in now, because public social housing hasn't been built to a decent extent for God knows how long, and this is why a lot of the private rental sector has to go to public housing lists, and the private rental sector is under pressure then because of that. And now we're looking at a stage where the eviction ban is lifted, and it's not for people who are not paying their rent in case people don't know. It's the standard controls were in place for people who were in arrears, etc. and so forth. The eviction ban didn't apply to them, but normal renters who are paying their rent up to date can willy-nilly be evicted if the landlord decides to sell. It's important to make that
absolutely. This is not about, if a tenant is engaged in antisocial behaviour, if, as you say, they're not paying their rent, those evictions were allowed anyway. And what's shocking about this is that in most European countries, you can't evict a tenant when you're selling the property. It's just considered a tenant if they're paying the rent, if they're doing everything right. It's their home, just as it is a home of someone who has bought it. And I think that's the real issue, that we have allowed this kind of system develop whereby landlords are kind of see, this is my investment, this is my property, I can do what I want with it, rather than going, this is a tenant's home.
Now, speaking of landlords, I know the Irish Property Owners Association were even seeking to take legal action when the ban was first introduced, but I think now they are threatening. A lot of landlords are leaving. Over the last 5 years, 40,000 landlords have left the market. Do you accept the fact that landlords are leaving the market now?
Well, they are selling up, but it's not... I think the reason we need to understand why are they. Some of them are reaching the age where they're literally at a point where I want to sell my investment. I want to get that asset. Property prices have reached, get the retirement fund. Property prices have reached the height. But the whole point is, if a landlord is selling, it shouldn't be a case that the tenant has to leave. That's the fundamental problem. And as you said, our over-reliance on the private rental sector for...
means that you effectively have a longer lease in effect, and that the landlord can only evict you for certain reasons. Sorry, can only terminate your tenancy for certain reasons. The primary ones there would be the sale of the property, the transfer of the allowing of a family member to move into the property. They would be the two main ones that we would see, and probably the two main ones that would arise consistently. Substantial refurbishment would be another one, but you have to invite the tenant back in once the refurbishment has concluded. Once that tenancy notice is served on you, you get a period of time, depending on the length of your tenancy, to vacate the property.
So you've been there 5 years. How much time do you have as of today?
It will set... Oh, no, the tenancy notice will have been served on you, so the notice then starts to run. So the maximum is the middle of June, I think now, that the eviction ban will extend. So if you had been reserved a tenancy, the maximum is the middle of June, and then from the 1st of April it will start for certain tenancies, depending the shorter the tenancy, I suppose. So if you don't raise a dispute with the RTB, the difficulty then for you is that you have a valid termination notice in place. And then if you have to overhold within the property, which means remaining on beyond the termination date, the difficulty for you then is that if the landlord takes enforcement proceedings to enforce that Residential Tenancies Board enforcement or determination order, you then could potentially be liable for the legal costs of the landlord. So while the issue is, our comments sometimes are made, well, sure, you can't get it out of the tenant, you're not, you mightn't be able to get the money or the legal costs or whatever. That isn't really the issue. The fact is that somebody has to go all the way to the district court. And on the comments recently by Leo Varadkar was that, a judge would be very reluctant to remove you. That's not the case.
That's not helpful at all in this narrative.
It raises a false hope that there is a possibility that a judge will look on this on a humanitarian basis. The residential tenancies legislation doesn't permit that. It just gives, is the determination order by the RTB a valid legal document or order? If it is, the district court judge has no option but to enforce that. And then you then are on the register, the annual register with the RTB in their report in relation to enforce determination orders that have been made. You come up as a tenant at a time where a landlord or a future landlord may check that to see if you are a good tenant, for want of a better word.
So you'll never be able to rent again, basically?
Yeah, potentially. And then the issue then is costs. So if you have an order for costs against you, does the landlord go and say, well, I might as well get a judgment for the costs? A person may be saving, so they may have some money.
So don't sit there beyond the time you're allowed, because you could basically be in a huge amount of legal trouble and financial trouble at the end of it.
There's this, in theory, there's a significant risk of that, which I don't think is very clear from what was the comments recently made.
What measures are in place to protect tenants that could be potentially affected with this eviction ban being lifted?
Well, so there's a number of measures that the government said that are in place. And as, Erin is saying, there is actually a system in place with the RTB. And so it is really important that tenants realise that there is this, if they receive a notice to quit, they should give it over to the RTB to make sure that it is, valid. And then, as Erin also said, there is that period of overholding before it even enters to a dispute. And there is that period where they should say to the landlord, look, I have nowhere to go. Can you please give us time? And they should also say to the landlord, would you be willing to sell it to the local authority or the housing? Because this is a tenant in situ purchase scheme.
We've seen newspaper reports today that are saying that a lot of landlords are refusing to sell to the local authority because they want a higher price.
Yeah,
they want above market value now. And so this is what we're looking at as well.
This is part of the problem of just allowing things, the market, landlords decide, do I want to sell it? Do I want to evict the tenant? This is boiling point. This is going to, explode in terms of landlords just say, well, actually, I don't want to sell it to the council or the housing association, so the tenant has to leave. And the government lifted the ban on the basis that, we've put these protections in place. They're not real protections. They have potential to be protections, and there's really good potential, like, for example, the ability of a tenant to have the first option to buy the property.
I know we could be talking about this till the cows come home, but unfortunately we're running out of time. Rory and Erin, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And of course, we'll have more on that story on our 12:30 and 5:30 news later on today.
And a reminder, if you're looking to access your legal rights, you can visit your local FLAC centre for basic information, or you can download their legal guides at flac.ie.
Up next, we have your Friday Sports Preview. That's after this short break.
Yes, welcome back. It's going to be a busy weekend for sport. Joining me with the top stories hitting the headlines is journalist and presenter of the Tackling Sport podcast, Daniel Hussey. Good to see you again, Daniel.
Yeah, great to be here.
A lot of rugby going on,
yeah,
and we're kind of licking our wounds after the Women's Six Nations opener last week against Wales, which you and I thought, it's a battle. We know it's the Women's Six Nations, so it's a battle for third spot. We thought, we could get something against Wales. We drew the second half.
We did, 26-0. Good match there, 31-5, 5-all second half. It was a bit of a shock to the system. I think we're now in a battle for fifth, really, because Italy looked quite decent against France. It's a bit disappointing. Look, it all goes back to the IRFU and how long it's taken to bring contracts in. Like, for example, Wales were 18 months ahead of us in the professional terms, brought it in a lot smoother. It is a bit easier because all their players can just drive to Gloucester, where most of them play down the road, where Ireland it's a bit more complicated. But they've sort of treated it like it's been the basket case for the IRFU for the last 4 or 5 years, and we are seeing that into fruition. Like, there's a lot of really good, talented rugby players trying to break through and trying to mould this team for Greg Williams is tough, but it does all go back to, I think, legacy of what Philip Brown left maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago and kind of took their eye off the ball with women's rugby, has led to this. Like, I'll give you an example that I think I saw a stat, right? There's 188,000 adult GA ladies footballers and total playing rugby and women's rugby at the moment. 8,000 across all codes, and that just shows you, doesn't it? Like
that's a scary stat.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Greg McWilliams has made 5 changes for tomorrow's game, but let's face it, we're playing France, who were 1 point away from beating the world champions in the semi-final at the last World Cup. So it's a step up from where we were last week.
Look, it'll be a good occasion. There'll be 6,000 Musgrave Park, and look, it's not realistic to say Ireland will win, but we're hoping maybe to see some glimpses. Like Dan O'Brien, you mentioned, one of the changes. She's 19, starting out half. That's very exciting. What is a positive in some ways, last week's starting 15 only had 2 players with 20 caps or more. The average was 7, so it is a young team, developing team in terms of caps, particularly, let alone age. So it's a young team to support. We've got to be thinking down the line. But we're looking for that sort of performance. You want to see France maybe work a bit for their tries. The problem with France was they almost struggled at times against Italy last week, so that complacency is gone, and they'll really be ruthless. Looking, as you said, it really all comes down to 6 Nations to England, France in the final day. So we're looking for that performance to take into the next 2-3 games. But you will be nervous if France do get a a step on there.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
could be,
they get a run. Yeah,
it could be. But you mentioned they're huge, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it could get ugly.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope it doesn't. Just as the footballers did on Monday, let's hope that the ladies rugby team can get it, put in a performance against France tomorrow. And remember, you'll be able to watch that match on Virgin Media One. Now, let's move on. Champions Cup is back.
Yeah.
Leinster and Ulster tomorrow night, 5:30.
Yeah.
They meet, and you know, people are writing off Ulster. Now, I know Leinster have had an incredible run, 19 consecutive wins, a draw last week when a defeat looked as if it was really on the cards. But Ulster have given them 2 good games this year.
Yeah, like
at least a good first half.
Yeah, well, when they went 22-3 up in the RDS, and the ton of takeaways from that was nearly better off Ulster didn't do that because they showed that even if they play well against Leinster, that Leinster can blow them away at any time. So that was the narrative. Where I would take from that was, look, Ulster's the season was affected for maybe a couple of months after in terms of their performance, but they have a template there. You're right about everyone writing Ulster off, 16-point favourites going into this game, which is huge. Remember the 2019 game, like the infamous Stockdale knock-on in that top left-hand corner, which would have seen Ulster potentially win the game. I don't think Ulster are quite at that level. I think they'll drop short, but I am expecting an interesting first half. You think of the Irish Grand Slam was, 10, 12 days ago. A majority of Leinster players were playing that game compared to Ulster. There's little narratives and things Dan McFarlane's side can really latch onto here. Full house in the Aviva as well, which is huge, and they've done a brilliant job in terms of selling out the game. I think it's literally a sellout, it's going to be a brilliant occasion for Irish rugby off the back of the Grand Slam. I just think people want to watch rugby again. But yeah, I would give Ulster a squeak, not necessarily to win the game, but I'd be surprised at half-time if Leinster blow them out of the water. But you mentioned the 20-game unbeaten run. This season, I haven't been impressed with Leinster in 4 or 5 of those games, and yet they're still winning so comfortably. You mentioned last week they still got the draw. So.
Yeah, they know how to win. They know how to win ugly as well as win well.
Exactly.
Munster.
Yes.
They have quite a game going on tomorrow.
They do. So
against Sharks. It's 12:30.
12:30, very early game, and Saturday is their first time playing in that stadium in Durban. So it's going to be a tough game. All I would say is that the South African teams have loved playing in the URC so much that they maybe not subconsciously prioritising that a little bit. Munster have that experience of Heineken Champions Cup game, knockout games for the last 10, 12 years. So I would probably give Munster a squeak. Like if I wanted underdog this weekend in the Champions Cup to back, it would be Munster this weekend. It's just because they were so poor last week against Glasgow. The kind of thing is they can't. They've almost had that setback since the Six Nations that maybe they can kick on again. I'm expecting a massive performance from Munster because, look, they're URC, like realistically, that they just need to do enough to get the Champions Cup position next year in that top 7 or 8, depending on how the Welsh teams do. But into this game, I just think it suits a team like Munster the way they've been playing. Bit inconsistent, but they are capable, as we've seen down through the years, of that massive European performance, albeit it's going to be in South Africa this year, but you get my point. But yeah, I am nervous in one sense, but yeah, like Ulster or Leinster, I actually think Munster could get the victory. It is set up for Graham Roundtree's team to have that big performance in South Africa.
Well, we will wait and see. There are 3 games coming from South Africa over the next while. The Premier League is back this weekend after the international break, and there's some game to kick off the weekend action. Manchester City playing Liverpool. Liverpool beat them back in October at Anfield. I know City had the Carabao Cup win over them since then, but it's a game that both teams need to win.
Yeah, it's like you said, must-win game. Liverpool for the top 4 with Newcastle, Manchester United playing later in the weekend. City to try and keep pace with Arsenal because Arsenal are playing at 3 o'clock, so it's a perfect title race, 12:33. The gap's 8 points with a game in hand. That could be 5 points with a game in hand going into the Arsenal against Leeds. Suddenly it's a different narrative. You just flip that. And
those 2 teams, Arsenal and Leeds, have history. So
exactly. And I wouldn't think that's an easy game for Arsenal at all. I expect Arsenal to win it, but Leeds and even Gracia, the way he set up his team, are quite defensive that they could, frustrate Arsenal. So like you said, it's a massive game, and it could all come down to Erling Haaland's injury, his groin injury, which over the last day or 2 has gathered legs that this might be a bit more serious than first feared. He, of course, sat out Norway's last game, and all of a sudden there's a bit of doubts, not just about this game, but maybe going forward. You hear conflicting reports.
You do.
And I think that's on purpose, isn't it?
And you hear about these injuries and you know, there's no injury.
It's Erling Haaland.
It's just mind games.
But maybe they are keeping under wraps that groin injuries. I've had them myself. They are kind of tough to shake off. Like maybe you can put a bit of short-term pain relief into it. But like Erling Haaland, it's a different team without Erling Haaland. Is still capable of winning. Yeah. But like you touched on Liverpool, it's for them to save their season. They could still get top 4 this year, despite everything. They're still in the hunt along with Spurs, Newcastle, Manchester United. I think 2 from those 4. Yeah. Maybe even Brighton might do it. But what a game, 12:30 straight after an international break. So it's going to be a brilliant occasion. I just think City will have enough, but their run of fixtures with Champions League and the wrong side of the draw in the Champions League, they could end up with no trophies this year. They're potentially the best team in Europe, and they could end up with no trophies, which wouldn't be ideal for Pep Guardiola. So it's just a massive 3 months.
We'll wait and see. Newcastle and Spurs fans will be trying to find Manchester City shirts at 12:30 tomorrow in the hope that they can get a win over Liverpool. We're going to be talking about GAA over the weekend. There isn't time for us to talk about it today, but Daniel, for now, thanks very much.
No worries.
All right. Remember, you can see Ireland in Six Nations action against France tomorrow. Coverage starts at 2:30 on Virgin Media 1. Still to come, we chat with the friend and stylist of the late great Amy Winehouse. Stay with us. We're back after this break. All right. Driving habits. The most disliked. We've got a top 5. Survey was carried out by People Insurance. 1,000 people were surveyed and they gave their opinions on.
You're kind of talking to the wrong girls about driving.
Yeah,
here,
I know.
But anyway.
Neither of these two drive. Yeah. Okay, but you have been in
We
taxis.
like to be driven.
Yeah.
I have driven. I had a car. I have driven, and I will drive again.
Still learning.
Anyway, top 5.
The world's a safer place without me. Anyway, continue.
Well, but you have been in cars,
Yes.
and you've all listened to taxi drivers. Oh, look at the state of that. Yeah, all right. At 5, not letting other drivers out.
Yeah, do you know what? When I'm in the car with Dara, he has this rule, like, let one person out, one person goes in. Like, he's actually nice about it. And he thinks, God bless him, that other people will do the same, but we're just left waiting.
And you get angry.
And if the second person darts out, then it's rage.
Yeah. Or second and third person, you go, hang on a minute.
You're taking the you-know-what.
I'm not Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
I was letting one of you out.
Yeah.
Not the whole gang
I was
of you.
being nice for a second now.
You do absolutely need to be nice. There's lots of others here. At number 4, driving too slow. Big annoyance for people.
That can be really dangerous because if you're driving too slow and people overtake you, and that's anger.
That's what can cause accidents, or not watching the traffic lights, being on your phone when they go green. And the people behind you thinking, what shade of green is this person waiting for?
I think that's the worst. Like when you see them texting and you're like, come on.
No, lads. Sometimes people are very impatient and they're literally a split second gone green. And if you're not accelerating straight away, people beep the horn too much.
No, but you look in the wing mirror and you see them.
And I do think, you know what, that could be discrimination against manual drivers because you need a second to like get the clutch down and, you know.
Driving too fast is at number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2, not using an indicator or not using an indicator correctly.
That's dangerous, never mind annoying.
Yeah. And lastly, number 1, nobody's surprised by this, dangerously overtaking.
Yeah.
That's where the accidents happen. Probably because the person in front of them was driving too slow.
Or else the person driving is a big idiot and shouldn't be speeding in the first place now.
Exactly.
More. Let us know what you think.
At least we know what not to do. But what does annoy you?
Right, up next, former stylist and friend to singer Amy Winehouse, Naomi Parry, tells us what the star was like away from the spotlight. See you after this short break. You're very welcome back to the show. Our next guest counted one of music's great icons as one of her best friends. Together with their gang of pals, they were the queens of Camden Town in the early noughties.
That friend happened to be the late, great and much missed Amy Winehouse. Stylist and friend to Amy, Naomi Parry, joins us now to discuss her book.
Hi.
How are you, Naomi? Good to see you. Okay,
Lovely.
It really is a fantastic book. The cover alone, you know just from looking at that one shot that it's her. The wonderful Amy. How did you two meet?
We actually met in Soho in London. We were both on a night out with our friends and we just got talking and then basically remained friends ever since. That was in 2005.
Yeah, did that become a very long night? Were you out that night?
Yeah, we went to gay bingo and then we ended up in a gay club and where we actually got thrown out of because Amy was a bit drunk and unruly. So that's how that ended.
When you think of Amy Winehouse, I mean, I worked in London for a bit in the 90s, in Camden actually, and it's kind of such an arty hub. You had singers, songwriters, artists, musicians, everyone there. And in even going into the noughties, it had that same kind of vibe, a really arty vibe. What was it like living with Amy and experiencing her life around that time?
Well, At the beginning, it was really fun because, you know, she wasn't particularly well known. But then, it was pretty chaotic, and she desperately tried to stay grounded, and, you know, she favoured going to the local pub still instead of going to sort of celebrity hangouts. So, it was quite surreal, really, especially when she had a large group of paparazzi following her everywhere.
And that was everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. They camped right outside her front door. She had no porch or driveway or anything. They were literally outside the front door, some of them sitting on my car, which I used to park right outside. So, yeah, it was crazy.
You see, I find that infuriating, because your home is supposed to be your sanctuary. And it's, in this case, and it's the same for so many others. But for Amy, God love her, it must have been a living hell.
Yeah, I think just back then we just sort of got on with it, but they wouldn't be able to get away with that now, I'm sure. We finally did get some injunctions on them, and they weren't, able to be in such close proximity. But yeah, I mean, they were right outside her window, so at all times as well, all through the night. Every time she left her house, they would be there. So yeah, it was really challenging.
Her music is absolutely iconic. I mean, especially after the album Back to Black was released. I mean, that smashed records. It had such amazing music, and her look that was attached to that album, the winged eyeliner with the big hair, the very statement clothes that were uniquely Amy. Having that whole look and being around with her and styling her around that time as well. What was it like? Because she was losing weight rapidly, and I think we almost know she was a tortured soul, but the higher her fame grew, the more that came out, I think.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I loved working with her. It was very difficult at times. It's, obviously devastating to see your friend go through such a traumatic time, and played out so publicly as well. She, her weight would fluctuate. You knew when she was really struggling because she would get a lot thinner. So yeah, it was very difficult, but she made up for it, or it made up for it by being so brilliant, and so fun and full of life.
See, sometimes I think we do get lost in the tragedy of Amy Winehouse, but her body of work is amazing. And looking at interviews with her, she had a very quick wit. She was quite sarcastic, and I'd say she was great fun to be around. Tell her what she was like as a friend.
Yes, she was incredibly fun. She was very loyal. She had an amazing ability to make you feel incredibly special. She really listened to you, and she asked about your life. And, whenever she greeted you, you'd get a big sloppy kiss, sometimes on the lips, even if you didn't want it. And she always told her friends that she loved them. She was very, very caring.
Yeah. You styled her. You became friends, and then you start working with her with styling. So was it a collaborative effort? Were there ever any, faux pas, ever things?
So many faux pas. It was absolutely collaborative. Amy was the architect of her image completely. I just kind of facilitated it. She, usually she would like the things that I presented her with. She never did fittings. She didn't come with me to choose the clothes. I didn't really get a particular brief. It was just like, nay, I wear little dresses on stage and Fred Perry tops off stage. So, you know what I like, kind of thing. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, she would like what I had. And then, other times not so much. I remember bringing her this purple dress once, and I was absolutely convinced she was going to love it. And, was really excited to pull it out the bag and presented it to her. And she was just like, nay, I'm just going to look like a Quality Street in that. And I was so gutted. But yeah.
Yeah.
Purple Quality Street is a nice suite.
Not for Amy.
I know.
I don't think it was very much her look.
No.
But her last few days as well, I mean, there's so many people of her age. We look at the Kurt Cobains, the Amy Winehouses, we have Janis Joplin, so many people we've lost at the peak their brilliance and the peak of their fame. But I suppose for someone like you, it was very personal, you had to mourn in a different way because she was your friend, obviously, but you only saw her a couple of days before she passed. And what was the aftermath of that for you?
Well, I'd just moved out. So I actually lived in a house around the back of hers. So I was on a street just behind hers. And there was it was surreal. There was like a pilgrimage of people that were coming through Camden. And, you know, Camden had been my home for the last 5 years, 6 years. And there was like a pilgrimage of people coming through Camden, you know, visiting all the haunts that Amy used to hang out in and then ending up at her house. So, you know, and it was the press were quite invasive and there was all these things popping up on the front page of the papers. And, you know, again, it was incredibly surreal. And I think I just sort of blocked out a lot of it at the time. I look back on it and it just feels like some weird dream/nightmare. But yeah, and it has ever since been incredibly challenging.
Well, you've decided, like, we're 12 years on, 12 years this July on from the sad passing of Amy. You've released a book, and this book is not focusing on the negative. This is celebrating the life and the music of Amy Winehouse. And it was done with the blessing of the Winehouse family.
Yes. Yeah. The book came about because I was tired of seeing all of the negative stuff in the press, and everybody was very focused on Amy's downfalls. And actually, she just achieved so much in such a short space of time, both with her music and her style. And she was so loved and cherished by her friends. And I think there was lots of people that didn't really have a voice. People didn't really know about them. So I just really wanted to bring everybody together to remember the good times, and, you know, people from the industry and musicians alike, just to kind of share their experiences of her, but also how she inspired them, and just really create something that really celebrated her. But it was also really fun as well, and just kind of embodied her spirit.
Well, we're looking forward to reading through it ad nauseum, because, yeah, her music, Tears Dry on My Own. It's one of those songs I go to whenever I want a pick-me-up.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, really? Is that your favourite too?
Yeah. I love that song.
Such a brilliant, brilliant song.
So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Naomi. Now, Naomi's book, Amy Winehouse Beyond Black, is available now.
After the break, we're winding the clock back to high school for some cheerleader tryouts in the garden. Not in the garden, it's raining outside.
Bring them in,
We'll
it's
bring you in.
rain.
We'll let them in here, because we don't want you getting your pom-poms wet. See you after the break.
Oh, who wants to...
This time, it's double or nothing. You can't deny the blaze, cause we seeing you sweat. But we know you're gonna try with every chance you get. Go! We do it clean, never sloppy. We're creators, you're a copy. You can try but won't stop me. We gon' bring it all on. Bring it on. We're the truth, no clone. We're the first, never last original. If you want it, place your bet. Nah, don't be scared. Double or nothing, it's all 911, what's your emergency? The place is ablaze and there's smoke detected. Everybody needs to evacuate. Strike force. We about to walk through, slay them looks, busy and books, the highest order, taking over, legendary, iconic Nova, royalty power elite, kiss the crown, bounce my feet, you girls better step to the side, we are stepping through. Stop, drop and roll, no you can't put us out. Ah! Here comes Blaze.
Absolutely brilliant.
Oh my gosh. I do wish I could dance like that. Oh my gosh, you guys are great.
Absolutely amazing. This is Strike Force. This is Shannon. She puts all this together. How long have you guys been working together?
So Strike Force has been running for 15 years now, and we're in our 15th year. And these guys have been cheering together, some of them since they were like 5 and 6.
Oh, so you're like a cheer family.
Yeah, we really are.
Okay, so literally these have been through school together.
Yeah, really, they've been through everything together. So,
Casey's here. How old were you when you joined, Casey?
I started when I was 10, so 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this a day off school?
No, I'm finished school now. I'm done, so I'm all right, yeah.
Day off college.
But now, I've got you. I want to ask him, because I saw you doing a couple of tricks there. Are you not scared tumbling like that?
Not anymore, no.
How young were you when you first started?
I was 10 as well.
I'd say you're absolutely fearless at that age. See, you're not scared of anything at that age, isn't that right? Yeah. Well, Shannon, I am wondering now, because I spent most of lockdown watching Cheer on Netflix, and I was absolutely obsessed. So have you seen a surge of interest now in cheerleading? Maybe because of that, but I do know it's also an Olympic sport now as of 2021.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a surge. I think everyone, when they were locked in their houses, were like, what's new on Netflix? And of course, Cheer was on, and everybody really ate up the hype of Cheer. And we really did have an influx of people that wanted to join, right from 4-year-olds. So I think parents were watching it and stuff, and they were like, I would want my child to be in that. So it definitely did push the popularity of Cheer in Ireland, and we've seen even an influx of clubs popping up all over the country. But yeah, everybody seems to just...
Yeah, well, that kind of routine that you were doing, you know, the flipping and, Now, Katja, Elaine and I, that's how we start our days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. That's how we wake ourselves up.
That would be the norm. But not everybody's at our level. So are there different levels?
Yes, there is different levels. So, like, you'll start from level 0 all the way up to level 7. And you'll just have a variety of different stunts, different tumbles. The dance and choreography will kind of be the same. In each level, but your stunts, so where you would have seen the girls getting put up in the air and they're tumbling where they kind of were flipping and stuff like that, that'll all change based on the level that you go into.
Okay. And now, just curious as well about like the gender split in this. You were a little star. What's your name?
Ethan.
Ethan, right. So are there many lads in this, or like, is it something that you have to encourage your mates, like, come on, try it out?
I don't really tell my mates about it, but I'm just used to it.
Yeah, how long have you been doing it now?
This is my 7th season. I've been in since I'm 9. I'm 16.
Yeah, I see. It's like second nature when you start so young. That's the thing. But like, would you like to see more of an equal sort of level in terms of like the guys and the girls that get into cheer, you know, for the lifting and everything like that? Because you were doing a lot. Yeah. Takes a lot of manpower, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, definitely. Right now in our programme, we have 3 boys.
Yeah.
One is 27, then we have Ethan, and then we have a boy who's younger than Ethan. But it definitely does make a difference to a team. It makes a difference even in the overall look of the team. I think there's no stigma around it in America, which is why in America you'll see on cheer, like, it's probably 50-50.
And college scholarships there as well.
Exactly, whereas over here, I think it's kind of like, I don't know, people are still kind of wary about like what it's about, what it entails. It's still girls in skirts and diamonds and bling, and we don't know if we want to be in it. But it's more athletic than that. Like,
I think it's bound to change pretty soon now.
It's an Olympic sport now, and it can take you to all parts of the world. Where you guys are off to Orlando in a few weeks.
Yes, we're going to the summit in Orlando. The girls and Ethan are going to compete in a competition with like 20,000 cheerleaders from all around the world for the top prize, the top title. So,
but it's a family event.
Yeah.
Because like there's a plane load of you going.
Like we have sisters on the team, Amy and Megan, and their whole family is gone. So like it's your whole family kind of flies over to see it on this big stage. It's really nice.
And it's ESPN, which means that it's Disney. Katie's shaking her head. I'm on my way. Magic Kingdom, here I come. Yeah, you're gonna have a great time.
I'm wishing you guys the best of luck. Like after seeing that, I know you're gonna kill it. So
thanks so much.
Yeah,
it is amazing. We didn't notice there's no pom poms.
No, there's no pom-poms, guys. We don't do cheers or we don't use pom-poms. There is parts of cheerleading that does use that, and that's like college cheer, which you would have seen on cheer. Or there's Team Ireland, our national team. They would do a cheer before they enter Worlds. But we do all-star cheer, so we don't kind of have anything like that in the routine.
Okay, we wish you the best of luck with it. And you look absolutely brilliant. The routine was... I know the lighting technicians were going to go...
Don't know how you did it with all the lights above there, but yeah, absolutely amazing. Well, Strike Force are always open now to new recruits down at their studio in Finglas, and you can find more at their website, strikeforce-cheer.com.
Okay, lots more still to come. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes. Good luck, guys.
Good luck!
You're very welcome back. Our next guests embarked on uncovering the hidden stories of Irish women who emigrated to North America from Ireland in the 19th and 20th centuries, who didn't quite achieve the American dream, putting it mildly.
Yeah, well, authors Leanne, McCormick and Elaine Farrell join us now to tell us more about their book, Bad Bridget. It's so lovely to have you here on the couch. And, like, obviously this project has already been receiving so many great reviews. Tell us, how did it come about?
So we're both social historians, and Leanne was doing research on Irish women and sexuality, and I was doing research on Irish women and crime. And we kind of thought if that's what Irish women are doing when they're in Ireland, chances are they're doing it in North America as well. So we wanted to find out if we were right.
Like, we do have a history of very strong, feisty women in this country. If you think of Grania Whale or Countess Markovich, but if we think about the Irish women who emigrated, sometimes they're kind of forgotten about, but a lot of them kind of left at a really young age. 7.9 million over a 100-year period, I think Irish people emigrated. And a lot of those were women because they were used as servants in North America. But they didn't quite achieve the American dream, as we said there. There were some quite notable characters, Leanne. Now, Bad Bridget is quite the collection of the ne'er-do-wells, shall we say, when it came to the female Irish immigrant. Tell us about some of them and who in particular sparked your interest.
Yeah, well, I should say we were interested to look at those women who didn't do as well, who didn't meet that American dream. And there are so many of them, and so many who travel on their own. And often it's the fact that they've travelled on their own and they're maybe without support networks or without anybody to look after them that does mean that they end up in crime. One of my particular favourites is a woman called Marion Canning, who she emigrates as quite a young teenager, and she's on her own essentially in New York. She's living in Mulberry Street, which was part of Little Italy on the fringes of 5 Points, the notorious area. And she ends up in prison for 7 years for theft, where there was no evidence that she'd actually committed the crime at all. But it's clear that she was a young Irish woman with no defence on her own in court, and that's how she ends up in prison. We find out about her, though, because her father, back in rural Leitrim, writes letters to the Governor of New York, to the judge in the case, saying, please, my daughter's in prison, please release her, let her go, our hearts are broken. And actually, the letters work. The judge, the district attorney, relooks at the case, and they realise that actually there is no evidence. She probably didn't commit this crime, and we know that she does go home. She goes back to Leitrim.
Do you think Irish women were targeted at that time because they were new, maybe picked on a little bit because of the different demographics there? You mentioned Little Italy, and a lot of different ethnic groups were there in New York at that time, kind of starting their life up and their businesses up. Do you think Irish people were targeted back then?
I mean, there is some of that, and we do see that. In Marion's case, very likely the fact that she was young, she was Irish, she was on her own. We know that she was involved in sex work as well, which that all would have gone against her in court. Yeah. So there are elements of that, and we see that often the Irish emigrating, living in really poor areas, groups of women together who are on the street drinking, making a nuisance of themselves, they're easy targets for arrests.
Now, we've all seen the historical signs: no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. We were really the lowest of the low when it came to the demographic over there, and we're lucky in your instance that she managed to get back to Limerick, but Leitrim. But normally, if Irish women emigrated, Elaine, it was the American wake. They had their wake before they left because they'd never clap eyes on their loved one again, and that happened so often. So many vulnerable Irish women went over there, fell into the life of crime, and sometimes they were jailed for the most silly of reasons, and it wasn't even, and for years and years at a time, even for public drunkenness, for allegations that weren't even true. Some very tragic cases as well.
There are, absolutely. And one of the crimes that stands out to me is the crime of stubbornness. Like, this was a crime in Massachusetts up to the 20th century. And we've got Irish girls who are actually put into prison by their parents for this crime of stubbornness. Like, to give you one example, we've got Elizabeth Finglas, who ran away to New York when she was 19, and she ran away with a travelling salesman. Yeah. And she says herself she didn't really like him, but she wanted to see New York. Yeah. So off she went. And, when she got back, her parents, that kind of so furious, had her brought to court. And the judge says, apologise to your parents and go home. And she's a stubborn child. So she said, no, she's not apologising to them. He said, OK, fine, you can go and stay in a cell for the night, thinking, as he wrote himself in his notes, this will change the girl's spirit. Yeah. But it didn't. She came back to court next day and said, she's not going back home to her parents. And so she went to prison. She was sentenced to 2 years. And while she's in prison, they actually look to see, they ask her about, what her family life was like, and what she reveals, and gives us such an insight into what the home might have been and why she didn't want to go home. She said her father was an alcoholic. He was abusive. Her aunt Mary was really blamed the parents for her behaviour and said she should have stayed in school, but they allowed her to leave school and get a job in a hotel. And so her aunt was saying, she was so smart, she should have stayed in school. And so she's in prison, and the prison inspectors go to her house, and they say the smell of cabbage was overwhelming, it was dirty, there were flies everywhere. And they write in their notes, it was a most unattractive home for a young girl. So when she's released, she actually goes into the care of her Aunt Mary. And I love that story because it's like the stubborn girl won in the end.
You know, the happy ending.
Yeah.
Well, now, this book does focus on the 19th century, the 18th century now. Was it important to highlight the women of this particular time? And why was it as well that you focused on the crime as well during that time?
I mean, women are often sidelined in history. So we really wanted to explore what women's stories were, what were their experiences, what were their lived realities. And through crime, we can really see women as victims, but we can also see women as agents. You know, they weren't passive. As you've said, Elaine, you know, these really kind of feisty women, we can see them coming out through the court records. And we've got the sad and the tragic stories, but we've also got lots of humour there as well, and real defiance in the courtroom.
Yeah, I have to say, when I think of Irish immigrants, particularly females, I think of Typhoid Mary because she immigrated and basically infected so many people because she was a carrier of typhoid, but she was one of the better known ones, I think. But there's so many, like hundreds of thousands over the years. But this book, of course, the podcast as well, and from an anthropological point of view, I mean, getting that slice of life, and as you saw, through letters, through correspondence, it gives a real taste of what the living experience was of Irish women who lived through probably the most difficult time in Irish history, Leanne.
Yeah, absolutely. And often, you know, as we said, those stories are forgotten and the male stories are prioritised, and we like to hear the stories of the happy endings. You know, they went and they did
Kennedy
really well,
and all that sort of
presidents
stuff,
and all of that sort of thing. And actually, for so many people, it wasn't. It was tough. And we do see stories of survival, how people worked through and found ways to survive and get past things and get through and make ends meet by all sorts of ways and means. And it does just give us this sort of view of the underbelly of society that sometimes we don't hear about, but it tells us a lot about the struggles and the stories and the realities of what was happening.
Yeah, I think it's always quite interesting that sometimes some Irish people are quite judgy about the immigration situation, where we probably
it's a great history.
Per square inch, we've probably sent more people around the world than any other country. Listen, thank you both so much for joining us. Bad Bridget, it's a brilliant read, especially if you're interested in feisty Irish women and what they get up to. Fascinating slice of history. Thank you both so much.
Thank
Elaine
you.
and Leanne's book, Bad Bridget, is available now. And for more book reviews, you can catch the next episode of What's the Story, hosted by Tara Lynn O'Neill on Sunday, 16th of April on Virgin Media 3. And you can catch up with the original review of it on the Virgin Media Player at the moment.
Feisty, just like our Elaine.
Listen, look who's talking. Yes. Shrinking Violet here, am I right?
Well, still to come, Colin, all fashion fans, designer Helen Steele is stopping by. See you after the break.
I was jailed for stubbornness, I'd never get out.
Ireland AM, we've teamed up with Visit Derry to give one lucky winner the chance to embrace a giant spring escape in Northern Ireland with a breakaway for two. Renowned as Ireland's only completely walled city and home to the hilarious hit comedy Derry Girls, Derry is the perfect short break destination, whether you're after a weekend of foodie experiences, lively nightlife, the warmest of welcomes, or a chance to soak up some culture. Visit Derry and Ireland AM are giving away 2-night stay for two people at the stylish 4-star City Hotel with dinner, plus Visit Derry passes to explore 10 of the city's attractions and tours. To be in with a chance to win this fabulous prize, answer the following question. Which of these Girls Aloud singers is from Derry? Is it A, Nadine Coyle, or B, Kimberly Walsh? To enter, call 1550 999 093 or text BREAK to 57199.
Good morning and happy Friday. Thanks for joining us here on Ireland AM.
Still to come, Irish fashion guru Helen Steele tells us what could be the world's sneakiest charity art auction.
Yes, and in fashion, we've spring styles for any event you have come your way across the Easter period.
Now, Kat is in the kitchen with something scrumptious today. That's just Fiona.
Yep. Yeah. And we've got something scrumptious as well besides Fiona as well. It's some brownies, I believe. So Fiona Yema is here with me in the kitchen this morning. She reckons she's found a way to make a classic brownie even better. How so?
Yes, well, first we're using an air fryer to bake it, so super easy. But then I'm adding matcha, which is a secret Japanese ingredient.
Oh,
and it's
lovely.
beautiful for baking.
Yeah, very popular matcha. I'm seeing it all over.
It's everywhere now. It's a real trend. Yeah.
Oh, looking forward to that. And shortly we'll be crossing over to Deric, who is live from Belfast this morning. What have you got coming up, Deric?
Yes, Katja, we're live here in Belfast in County Antrim. We're actually on board the HMS Caroline, one of the only surviving battleships from World War I. We're actually below deck here in the Marines mess. We've actually got breakfast lined up for us here this morning. We're going to be catching up with some of the crew in another couple of minutes' time. I believe this ship actually never lost a person, with the exception of a chef who had a couple of tipples on St. Stephen's Day and fell overboard. But other than that, they did pretty well. So back to you guys in the studio, and we'll catch you back live in a few minutes' time.
We've all been that
breakfast is
soldier.
served. Oh, yeah, nearly fallen over.
Over St. Stephen's Day.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot of food he's got for his breakfast, isn't it?
I know. He's a busy man.
He's a hungry boy. He's a grown boy who needs his breakfast.
Now, Deric has been out and about in Belfast, and this morning he's seizing the day.
Yeah, he's in the Navy, kind of. Anyway, how about it? Can we stop this, please?
Love what you did there, guys. Ahoy, sailor. Welcome on board the HMS Caroline here in the Maritime Quarter in Belfast in County Antrim. John Taylor is with us now. John, let's talk about the history of this ship, because it's absolutely steeped in it, isn't it?
It is. The keel of HMS Caroline was laid in 1913. She took 1 year to build. She was launched in 1914 and then went straight out to sea and did her trials, and then went on to fight in the Battle of Jutland.
Yeah, and she had a pivotal role in that battle in World War I, didn't she?
She did. She was a C-class light cruiser, and her job was basically to get the information over the ground of the German ground fleet, where they were, and get that information back to the British ground fleet.
But she was actually built in likeness to the German warships.
She was. She had the 3 funnels, the mast, and if you were looking at some distance away, you would think she was a German light cruiser.
Now, then it got decommissioned, but it was obviously recommissioned then back in World War II again.
Yes, what happened at 1922, she was decommissioned from the Royal Navy. She was lined up along with a lot of the battleships and cruisers of that time, and Lord Carson was given the detail to go across and pick out a ship to come back across to Northern Ireland for training of crews for the Second World War. He went along the line of ships, saw Caroline, said that's the ship for Northern Ireland, and brought Caroline across to Northern Ireland.
And it's been in Belfast ever since?
It's been in Belfast ever since.
And it's open to the public now for the first time in 3 years?
It is. The COVID really closed it down over those 3 years.
All right, so we're going to walk and talk backwards here, actually. We're going to pass the little galley kitchen here, and we're going to pop in here to this room, and we have got Kerry with us now. That's a very Irish thing. Good morning to you, Kerry.
Good morning. How are you?
Tell us about the room we're in here at the moment.
Well, this would be the officers' dining room. We just came from the Marines mess, and this is the officers' dining room. And the thing about the officers' dining room is it's much more plush, it's much more nice. These guys lived a lot better than the ordinary Marines.
How many crew would have been on board the vessel then?
We would have had about 300 people on board during the First World War. So if you can imagine, it was a very tight space. So these guys were living very closely packed together. It was a tough life.
It was a tough life, but you told me earlier on that nobody lost their life, well, with the exception of one.
No, throughout the Battle of Jutland, the ship survived the worst naval engagement in human history, but they lost one guy overboard on St. Stephen's Day. He was the ship's cook, so obviously the Christmas dinner mustn't have been much good.
Yeah. And this place, it's obviously open to the public now?
That's right, we're open to the public. We've been closed now for 3 years because of COVID, but we're open now again to the public, and we're welcoming people back again. We've got the ship, we're ready to rock and roll, and the place is looking great, so we're hoping people are going to come and see us.
And where can we find you online?
We're online at hmscaroline.co.uk.
Okay, that's where you can find those tickets if you want to hop on board. But for now, guys, ahoy, sailor, back to you in studio. Thank you very much, Kerry. That's very plush, isn't it?
All right, only lost one, and that was because of the dinner. Anyway, Christmas dinner. Had too much, obviously. Up next, one of Ireland's favourite fashionistas, Helen Steele, joins us. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now, Helen Steele is well known to fashionistas as one of Ireland's foremost international designers, dressing the likes of Saoirse Ronan, Cara Delevingne and Jessie J.
But she's just as successful in the world of art, with her works found in collections of Diane von Furstenberg, Donald Sutherland and Helena Christensen.
And it's through the art world that she's trying to give something back to one of Ireland's most deserving charities through the Incognito auction. Helen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So lovely having you. You're such a ray of sunshine, literally. Because I think of Helen Steele and I think of colour.
Oh, really? Thank you. That's really good to hear.
You have a deep love of colour.
I do indeed, yeah.
Even both in your clothes, as we see now, and in your print.
Yeah, most definitely. And in the artwork as well.
Okay, so I know there's a split. Obviously, if somebody is working in the fashion industry, they are very creative, quite arty. But what is the split like with you? Is it a 50-50 split, art, fashion?
It's a kind of 60-40,
right.
60% fashion, 40% art. Well, to get the prints, I have to paint.
Yeah.
So it's 60-40.
Because I often think with your garments that you could literally, if you ever got sick of them, you could just literally put them in a frame and put them on your wall. Because you do have to design the prints and design the actual, you do your kind of painting first before you put it into a garment. And I suppose that's in a way why you're here with us today. You're doing your artwork for good and this project called Incognito. So please do tell us about it.
So Incognito is, it's an art sale and it goes live today on www.incognito.ie.
We put up the details in a while on screen. We have them there, don't you worry, we were all over that.
So it's basically, it's 1,000 different Irish artists, 3,000 individual artworks. They've had Ronnie Wood, Bob Geldof, this year Mick O'Dea is involved, Martin Gale. There's some incredible artists, but you can buy, for €60, you can buy an original work of art. And those funds go to 3 hours of nursing care for children who are ill and to support their families.
So it's like a lottery, basically. You could get a card designed by, I mean, in the past they've had Bruce Springsteen, Bono, people like that. Could be you, could be anyone else, or it could be someone in primary school that you might know down the road. So it could be anybody. But for how much are they each?
€60.
€60 each. But for 60, it's
incredible.
Like you're supporting.
€65.
Sorry,
65.
You're supporting a great cause, and you might have something that's worth a fortune. But either way, you're doing some great good there because I mean, and it's a postcard size. Is that right?
It is postcard size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're involved this year. You one of yours. Is it just one you've done?
3.
3, yay.
Yeah.
You see,
triple the choice.
3 chances. Okay, 3 chances to get a Helen Steele piece of art, or a Ronnie Wood, or a Bono, or Bruce Springsteen.
Never know.
You just don't know. I think they asked me in the first year to do one. Yeah, I think my picture was like Maureen O'Hara's bonnet in the Quiet Man. It was left hanging.
And they didn't ask me, and my fabulous bees were amazing. Next year I'll do it for you. Next year,
perhaps.
But Jack and Jill, it's such an important, such an important charity. How did you become involved with them in the first place?
I was asked in 2019 to get involved, and it was only recently when we were filming in my studio with someone from the Jack and Jill Foundation that I found out that a family in the village that my kids grew up in Emigration and Monaghan had been availing of the services. So my eldest daughter went to school with this boy who needed the services, and they provided incredible services for, valuable care, so as the family can do something together, or go and do the food shop, or things that we take for granted, basic things that we take for granted. They're able to do.
And they get little or no funding. So that's why, from the government. So that's why they depend on events like this and projects like this so that they can keep providing those services. They're a wonderful cause. We had a couple of people in just a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about
running right around the studio, if I remember correctly.
They were having a great time.
Great old crack.
You know what? We had the most gorgeous family yesterday, the Heffernan family, and Aaron, who is availing of the services, and his sister Megan were there. And Megan told me she's in 3rd class and that she was very excited about the day. And they got their photographs taken. We got to meet them. and it didn't rain, and they were thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Oh, that's lovely. And when you see what the money's put towards and how important it is for these families, I mean, it's such a little thing to do to either donate an art piece like you yourself or actually buy one, which they're online now, as we said. Now, I have to go back to your clothes design, which I suppose you're most well known for here in Ireland. You've recently moved back to Dublin from Connacht. I know they said to Hell or to Connacht, but you kind of did that in reverse.
Yeah, it was Monaghan, yeah.
Oh, it was Monaghan and Connacht?
No, Ulster.
Ulster. Oh, Jesus, I'm going to be murdered.
Somebody needs to go back to school for geography lessons.
Sligo, Leitrim, Roscommon, I was thinking of. I'm in serious trouble there. I was saying I'm fading. But that you did move back. You had a massive studio in Monaghan. Now you're back in... we are in Leinster, Dublin, isn't it?
We are in Leinster. Last we checked. Not unless they moved us today.
That much right. But why did you make the move back? Because it sounds like you had a pretty arty, ideal life over there.
I did, but I was spending 6 hours a day commuting.
Oh, God.
Yeah, 3 to 6 hours, usually 6 hours a day commuting, 5 days a week, and then working at the weekend as well. So quality of life wasn't fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, Emmy Vale is the very top end of Monaghan.
It is. It's like pointing right into Tyrone.
Yeah.
So it's idyllic and beautiful, but it just, there had to be a work-life balance. And I suppose, unfortunately, that was one thing that COVID did kind of make me realise was, you know, can't be living on the road.
Somebody told me that when you're busy at work in your studio, if somebody was to walk by your window, they would actually call the guards because you look like an escaped convict.
Yeah, that's right.
What now?
Is this true?
Explain yourself.
That is true, yeah. I was in Chicago and I bought a Hook, I think it's Hook County Prison or Chicago County Jail. Orange jumpsuit.
Orange is the new black orange.
Orange is the new black, yeah. And have been wearing it like for maybe, God, the guts of 18 years.
Yeah.
And
so it's not quite your usual fashion statements because when you look at who you've dressed over the years, you've got the likes of Saoirse Ronan and Cara Delevingne. I mean, having people of that calibre walking around in your stuff must be a bit pinch me, is it?
It's very pinch me, yeah. It's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity for an artist, for a designer to get, it really is, because it gets your clothes out there.
Yeah. Yeah, but you get up in the morning, you need a bottle of milk. So you're very clever because you also design some leisure wear too.
Yes.
So you can, you know, get into your trackies and head down to get a loaf of bread.
Absolutely. Actually, my new collection with Dunnes Stores just launched. It's called Flow. And I literally live in that. I call it like my... bad girl clothes because you look like you're going to the gym, but sometimes you're just not.
You're just out of the
bed.
bed.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
So comfortable.
Active wear.
Yeah.
And you can also have a coffee. And listen, it's absolutely lovely chatting to you. And well done on your recent collection. And of course, the Incognito project, which is absolutely amazing and such a wonderful cause.
Thank you very much.
Just be careful, the Secret Service coming into the country in a few weeks. They may see your orange suit and they'll arrest you and bring you back to Cook County Jail. It'll be good to see you, Helen.
Thank you.
Now, a reminder that the Incognito art sale in aid of the Jack and Jill Children's Foundation starts on Wednesday, April 26th. And you could get lucky and get a Helen Steele original for $65. Registration in advance is strongly advised. Visit incognito.ie, open from today for all the details.
OK, after the break, we're off to the kitchen for chocolate brownies, but not as you know them. There's a bit of a difference. We'll see you for that in a minute. Now, welcome back. It's an old tradition to have a chocolate with your tea, but it's Lent, Sunday week. Come on!
Break now.
But what if I told you we had a way to combine the two into one?
Yeah, because joining us now is Fiona Iema from Fused by Fiona with an extra special recipe for a classic brownie. So, brownies with a matcha twist. Please explain.
That's right. Well, if you're going to go to the effort of making it at home, you might as well make a really good one and kind of make it a little bit healthy, not too healthy. But yeah, matcha is my secret Japanese ingredient. It's a really concentrated green tea full of health benefits like gut, anti-cancerous, anything you can really think of. So I love trying to include it in anything I can.
I'm sent to the shops regularly to get that for my
and there's there's local Irish companies actually that make matcha. So if you seek them out, you know, it's good to support the local companies.
Yeah.
And they make really good quality ones. So I suppose today's recipe is not for you to eat today. Well, we'll have to, obviously. But it's for everyone thinking of Easter Sunday and recipe inspiration. Sorry, Martin.
We'll pretend to eat it for you.
It's all right. It's all
I'll
right.
be the guinea pig, gladly.
So you're going to eat mine, is that what you're saying?
I'll eat yours, yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Is this not an exception, no, that I come in?
Do you know what? Somebody get in touch with Pope Francis and get me dispensation, and we'll see if I can have a bit of a brownie. So we're going to start this the way you normally would if you're making brownies.
Yeah. So I have butter and 70% chocolate there. So a good quality dark chocolate. 70% is about the right balance.
Really rubbing this in, isn't she? Good quality chocolate. Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, Martin. So just to avoid all that whisking that you heard earlier for our viewers, I have 2 eggs there and sugar. Right, 100 grams of sugar. You can really use any sugar you want. So I've just whisked that. You want to make it nice and airy, okay, just to make the brownie light. And then here I am melting the butter and chocolate. So that's really the first and the second step. You gently heat that. You could do it in a bowl with water over it, but this is probably faster. So that's nearly melted. And then the third step, just while waiting for that, is I'm actually using rice flour, a bit of inspiration, I suppose, from Japan as well. But it actually ties in lovely with the gluten-free people out there.
Yeah, so
and
it
it's
must
an
be
accidental
lighter feel.
gluten-free brownie. And I get a lot of messages, actually, on my Instagram page about gluten-free. So I was happy when I could think I could tie that in as well.
Perfect.
If you have regular flour at home, use that as well.
See, between the matcha and the rice flour, it's healthy.
It is healthy,
It's a healthy
yes.
treat.
So I'm adding this in now. Really at home, you could let that cool down a little bit before adding it in.
Is there a fear that the eggs could scramble?
This is it, yes. So you just want to get working on that straight away. And you can see that's lovely and airy because you're mixing it in with the air that you trapped for the sugar and egg.
And do you do it all at once, or would you do half the chocolate and then
I just
all
throw
at
it all
once?
in.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just a minute there, turn around. And the third step then is your rice flour or regular flour, whichever you want to use at home. And this is the stage that I add the matcha. So this is very concentrated. So you don't want to add a lot. A teaspoon, half teaspoon.
And you still have all that goodness just from that. That's
yes,
brilliant.
exactly. And then we'll use it a bit for garnishing later as well.
Yeah.
But again, it has a bit of a bitter taste. So you don't want to add a lot. That's the only thing I'd say. It's funny because my son came up when I was garnishing it to taste a great thing. And he's like, Mom, that's a little bit bitter. I think he was expecting it to be like icing sugar, you know? So you could mix it with icing sugar if you wanted. But you want to gently mix this with, I have a large metal spoon. And what you're trying to do is just wet all the flour so it just mixes through the chocolate mix perfectly. So you can see, like, how long did that take?
No time at all.
You know, it's such an easy recipe, and the smell of homemade baking. Sorry now, Martin, I'm teasing you here.
Now, I thought this was a ghetto blaster.
So
I was about to put some music on just to keep us entertained. But
I didn't think of that. Well, everyone is going mad for air fryers. So I said I'm just going to demonstrate how to bake in an air fryer. Not all of them have a bake function. This one does. So I just put it on bake. For this, I'm doing 160. And the time I'm doing, and this can go in 180 preheated oven as well for anyone at home that doesn't have that. But you usually have a tray like this for frying chicken or whatever. You take that out. You do a light grease of the tray.
Oh, because my
just
next
very
question
light.
would be like, what do you use to like create the shapes? But you're basically putting it all on the floor of the...
Exactly.
And then you're going to cut it up.
Yeah, just a very light grease. Then I have some grease-proof paper here. I've just cut the edges. And you place that in. And it works. It's magic itself. So that's the tray.
So handy.
And you just pour it in.
You
Easy
know,
peasy.
this is great for a lazy baker, and I'm a lazy baker, so I'm going to try that.
And I'm guilty of that
do you run
too.
the risk of having chocolatey flavoured chips
No.
later in the
Would
day?
you complain?
Paper for that.
No, you don't.
Okay, so
the
if it was going in the oven, you'd use a baking tray.
Yeah, the technology on the air fryer is just absolutely phenomenal. So there it is in the tray.
Yeah.
You put it in like that. Now, it's a 30-minute cooking time, but sometimes I prefer about 25 minutes, and you just hit it there and it'll cook away. Just a bit more moist
Yeah.
I prefer it like that.
Nice and
Turgid
gooey
can
in
be a
the
bit
centre.
dry. Yes.
No, I'm going to call you Satan. All she keeps doing is chocolate and then great
Moist
it
chocolate,
tastes.
good quality.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know I love the presentation of stuff.
Yes.
I love colours. So brownies, I'm thinking of Easter Sunday, anyone at home. Brownies can be a little bit dull to serve, so we want to add lots of colour. So what I've done here is just got some strawberries, raspberries. I have a lovely Irish nut butter.
We've got about a minute here.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
So the nut butter can act as a glue, actually. So if you want to put nuts on it, some crushed nuts.
What kind of nut butter is that?
It's paprika, actually, that's given it that beautiful colour.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's nut butter with paprika. Then you could add some raspberries on top, but you're just trying to get all the colours in.
Yeah.
We have some orange and then a little bit of matcha. You could mix this with icing flour.
Yeah.
If you prefer.
The
Do you want
matcha
to
is
try
not
it?
cheap. So
Yeah.
It's not cheap, so you're using a very small
amount.
bit.
Now, are you sure? You have a little bite. You can spit it out later.
Holy God is watching. Get in there.
Fantastic.
There's 2 spoons, one for me and one for you.
I might
So when you
try the
take
nut
it out of
butter
the
one.
tray, you'll have a block, and then you can cut it 3 ways. So you get 9 pieces.
Yeah.
Too good.
Too early.
Fiona,
Never too early.
they look amazing.
You know what? Maybe if you freeze it, it'll still be good.
It'd be grand. It'd be grand for
Bring
Sunday
one
week.
home and put in the freezer.
No,
see.
this is gorgeous.
It's lovely with the nut butter,
You're
actually.
really rubbing this in, aren't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It does
This
look
is
amazing.
my pre-workout before the gym, Martin.
She's going to the gym. She needs to do an extra set of squats.
Yeah,
Okay?
oh, definitely.
Fiona, great to see you again.
You too.
Thank you for that.
Thanks so much.
Full recipe details are up on our website, or of course you can always visit fusedbyfionauyema.com for more of Fiona's delicious recipes.
Up next, we're over at the catwalk with some more spring styles for the upcoming bank holiday weekend. Whatever your plans might be, but stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, Easter is just around the corner, giving us the perfect excuse to dress up, even if it is just to sit on the couch and eat some chocolate and Easter eggs.
Stylist Rosalind Lipset joins us this morning with some spring-summer styles that'll do just the trick. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. So you're going to inspire us for Easter.
Oh, look, Easter is all about rebirth. Spring is here, the lambs are jumping, and why not add a bit of rebirth to our wardrobe? Maybe we're going for a lunch with friends, maybe we have a family dinner, or else we're just doing an Easter egg hunt with our kids. So let us have a look at some of the gorgeous fashion today. We have 2 new brands that have never been seen on Ireland AM before.
Oh, wow.
So really looking forward to showing you some of these stunning pieces.
I love this now.
How chic
Gorgeous,
is this
so
look?
chic.
I think this may be designed by a girl from my hometown, Mallow, if I remember correctly.
Sinead Keary.
That's it.
Yes. So we're going to start off with the jewellery today, which is also from a new brand that have never featured on Ireland AM before. This is a stunning piece from littlelight.ie. They're so symbolic. They actually suffered grief. One of the sisters, her husband died, and she found comfort in little pieces of jewellery, and they were very symbolic. This one has a heart shape, which means self-love and self-care, and they all come with little handwritten poems.
It's a very thoughtful gift even for
really
someone
is.
as well.
The packaging and everything. It's
Yeah.
made with sterling silver and then covered in 14 karat gold. So it's really beautifully made, very delicate. And I've added it here to this very ethereal, divine blazer. I love a wrap blazer. This is from Sinead Keary, the label. If you haven't heard of her, she actually won Designer of the Year last year at the VIP Style Awards. She's on everyone's lips at the moment, and people are loving her classic stable pieces. She's all about the capsule wardrobe. She's all about having something to wear always.
Yes.
You know, when you look in your wardrobe, you're like, I have nothing to wear. When you have a few of her capsule wardrobe pieces, you will have something to wear. She was a personal shopper for 19 years. So she realised that women want this draping. And sometimes women say, oh, this blazer's too boxy for me.
Yeah.
I need it to kind of cinch in more of my waist, or else it's too tight and it's bulging. a wrap blazer is your go-to. And then this beautiful gold midi skirt as well. It's such a lovely layering piece. There's so many ways you can wear it. Now we're going on to the shoes. All of our shoes today are from Murphy's Shoes in Bantry. These are absolutely stunning. They add a little bit of a sparkle to the look and it really glams it up. So this would also be perfect for a confirmation or a communion that you have coming up, but also be lovely for
at a
Easter.
higher price point, but these are bits that you'll never get rid of. They'll be in your wardrobe forever.
They really are. They're the kind of piece that you will wear. This cami is such a great staple. So it's bra friendly because it actually has bra hooks in it. So you're able to actually connect your bra to the sleeves, so it doesn't fall off. It's perfect if you have a bigger bust as well.
Hello, sailor. This looks very going off to Saint-Tropez for the day.
She is, or an egg hunt, maybe.
Oh,
she has egg hunt shoes.
Very glam egg hunt.
Maybe you're going to mass and then you're going to go and cook your lunch. Well, this is a really fun Easter look. Again, we're going to start off with the jewellery, and this symbol is the new crescent moon. So it's all about the new beginnings and new starts. It has a really beautiful symbolic poem in it, a great present as well. Maybe someone's moving country or starting a new job and has a new beginning. This is a beautiful symbol as a gift. Now we're going on to this gorgeous look. It's from Pamela Scott. As I mentioned, we're all about the blazers, the perfect transitional piece. The weather's lovely now, but it still gets a bit chilly in the evenings. So a blazer is your best friend at the moment. I love this pop of pink for Easter. We're all about embracing the pastels and the baby blues and all those little, Easter chicky colours. Underneath is this gorgeous go-to shirt dress. It is so comfortable. It's really flattering because it ties just above the waist, so really breathable. It's got this beautiful cotton material. It looks so elegant. I love the stripe detail, and it's got this beautiful 3/4 length detail. It goes up to a size 18, and again, great if you have a bigger bust because it does have those buttons that you can open a little bit, and then it has this beautiful tie detail.
I think, it's complementary to, a woman's shape as well.
It's very hourglass. Now we're going on to the egg hunt shoes. Everyone needs a pair of wedges in their wardrobe now for the rest of the summer. Hopefully summer starts now. Yes, we will.
Because the worst thing about being out and about is your heels sinking into the grass. So that is the good thing about wearing wedges, isn't it?
There's nothing worse than that hobbly walk.
But there's something very elegant.
Yes, this is another beautiful piece. Again, we're starting off with the jewellery from littlelight.ie, and this piece is called Soul Sisters. So it is a brand that was made with sisters, and they have each other's back, and the intertwining symbol of the circles is a great friendship gift. If you have that person who's always there for you, it's a link to show that, you will always be there for each other as soul sisters. Now we are going on again to Sinead Keary, the label. She can be available on SineadKeary.com, and she does pop-ups a lot around the country. This is such an ethereal blouse. I'm actually wearing the same in navy. It also comes in pink, and it comes in a beautiful kind of goldy as well. This is the cream colour, I think it's the champagne, sorry. And then underneath she has one of the camis as well. Absolutely gorgeous layering piece. This would be stunning if you had a confirmation or a communion coming up. It would be perfect if you have kind of a more fancy Easter day planned, It's just such a beautiful angelic look. It's such a perfect layering piece. Now we're going to go on to this gorgeous skirt. It's got a little bit of slit detail. Again, this can be worn in so many ways. I love the way it's all paired here together. But again, you can layer it with a piece of knitwear, a blazer, a polo neck. There's so many ways to wear a silk midi skirt. Then we're going on to the shoes. Again, we're adding a little bit of sparkle, really glamming up the outfit. But again, that skirt will work so hard throughout the summer.
We have to fly through this now because we're running out of time, so the jewellery first.
We're running out of time. So here is, again, the jewellery. This has a pause symbol. So this is all about self-love and self-care. And it's a reminder that sometimes we need to stop. Sometimes we're going so fast that we need to just stop and take a break. And that is just a gentle reminder to yourself. Then we're going on to this look from Pamela Scott. Again, this beautiful nautical-inspired blazer. It's perfect if you're going to mass or if you're going to maybe lunch with friends on Easter Sunday. Again, we've got the added pinks and pastels, vibrancy for spring. We're all about rebirth. The flowers are blooming, as is Ursula here in the stunning dress. And this gorgeous bag, it's got this croc detail, a really, really good size. It's got this beautiful kind of shiny patterned look, and it is in a kind of an eggshell colour. Then we're going on to the shoes. They are Lodi. Murphy's shoes there in Bantry hold a host of beautiful designer labels made to last. I find it hard to find a really nice navy coat, and this is your
navy?
girl.
Wow, I don't know.
Yeah, they're navy.
Oh, wow.
I know.
The French navy is gorgeous and very hard to find.
It is hard to find. That's all we have, but thank you so much for today.
Oh, that's absolutely lovely. And do you know what's inspired us for Easter? We'll have to,
know.
We'll have to up our
Brighten up
next
the
weekend.
wardrobe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have a brunch with your friends and gabble.
Thank you so much, Roz. Now it's over to Martin.
Yeah, coming up tomorrow, she may be married at first sight's relationship expert, but her own dating life used to be a disaster. Nell Schilling chats to us. Love Island winner and former Olympian Greg O'Shea opens up about his own mental health.
And this Corky-born novelist and poet Colin Tobin will be stopping by.